What do you make of this latest statement from the White House where the US is saying that using the military to take Greenland is an option?
I think it ties in very much with Trump's general mode of practice, which is to take a sort of maximalist aggressive position and then use that as the basis for negotiation. I'm sure that the United States doesn't actually want to militarily take Greenland, but I think they're very comfortable making the threat with the intention that from there, all of a sudden, the purchase of Greenland looks like a relatively attractive offer to Denmark if those are the options.
Does it feel like the globe is entering a whole new era when it comes to international relations and the rule of law? Or this is just how Donald Trump operates to get an outcome?
I think we're absolutely entering a new period of international relations. I think probably the biggest mistake that's made in commentary about American foreign policy is the idea that it's driven by Trump's personality or by his idiosyncrasies and bluster. Um, the United States has signaled through very important documents like the recent national security strategy that they are intending to pivot away from global empire, to pivot away from a rules-based order made up of laws, economic interconnectedness, and institutions, and towards an America First foreign policy. And this is what an America First foreign policy looks like. It's taking hegemony in the Western Hemisphere and ultimately seeking to ensure that none of their rivals can achieve hegemony in their own regions.
So, do you think this strategy on Greenland could be successful?
It absolutely could be successful. I think we've out of a sort of path dependency, we've gotten used to the idea of the United States as a certain type of power as it's operated, particularly in the Cold War period. And the Trump administration particularly has shown time and again that they don't operate like that anymore, and we should get used to it and we should take them seriously.
And so, how do you see this being possibly successful?
Not really for me to say, but I would think that if the United States presented this as two options, we're going to purposefully implode NATO at a time when Europe is pretty much engaged in a proxy war with Russia when it really needs American support. We're either going to do this and you guys are on your own in Europe against Russia, or we can settle it amicably. We can make it look like a win-win, like a great deal, but ultimately the territory is going to come under our control. Whether it is successful or not, I couldn't say, but I do expect that they'll make a priority of settling this in the Trump administration, perhaps very soon.
And so, why are they so keen on Greenland?
Well, there are two explanations that normally get discussed. The first is around critical minerals. So Greenland has a major deposit of critical minerals, things that are used to make the defense products, but also the high-tech digital products of at the cutting edge of 21st century industry. So the US has made a priority of securing supply chains for these critical minerals, and we've just had an agreement between Australia and the United States in this area. I actually think that the economic and the resource explanation is a little bit overplayed. I think they're happy to have a natural stockpile of these resources in Greenland under their sovereignty, but from a purely economic perspective, it doesn't make much sense. What I think is really important is the other explanation, which is that it's a clear geostrategic territory that allows for the domination of the Arctic Circle. This isn't new either. The United States has sought to acquire Greenland since the 19th century under William Seward as the Secretary of State, who was a great architect of empire. So it's been known for a very long time that Greenland is a valuable geostrategic territory, and I think with China emerging, with the polar ice caps melting due to climate change, the Arctic is becoming more and more important. And so the United States is looking to lock in that northern flank of their hemisphere and make sure that they can dominate that region without having to rely on allies, without having to rely on NATO.
Yeah, and so what could it do once it owned the territory if it did that it's not doing now?
Well, it already has an air base up there. It's already used to refuel strategic bombers and to as a base for interceptor missiles. That will continue, but it's really about sovereignty. It's really about the fact that the United States has said very clearly that the era of collective security is over, and that the United States is going to rely on itself, and it is not going to be bound by these, increasingly complex security arrangements into the defense of other states, because Trump and some of the key thinkers like Elbridge Colby believe that this is a losing strategy in the long term, that it takes more from the United States than what it offers them. And so they want sovereignty in Greenland. They want to be able to rely on their own resources there in the long term, not on the permissions of allies and the good graces of Europeans.
And to what degree is that argument solidly based?
Well, I think there is a rationale for it based on American self-interest. It's certainly not in the interest of Europe. It's not in the interest of Denmark, and it I think establishes a precedent of great risk for American alliance politics. So they may think that they're best off alone in the Arctic and establishing a sort of balance of power in Europe between Russia and the European Union that America isn't as involved in as they have been since the end of the Second World War. But they do need allies in Asia. The US is firmly focused on containing China, and they are dependent on Japan, Australia, and they want to make foster other partnerships with countries like India and perhaps even in the future Russia to do that. So setting the precedent that alliances don't really matter, the terms of alliances don't matter once we decide it's not in our best interest. Well, this sends a pretty clear message to countries like Australia that, our long-term alliance, which Australia has always treated as sort of at the core of our foreign policy, it's contingent on American administrations and the changing of interests. So it's more unstable in that sense.
Yeah, and so how do you feel about this era we're apparently entering into in terms of international relations and the implications for global stability?
Well, I think that the most stable system is the one that reflects the actual capabilities and balance of power of the great powers. So unipolarity, American empire and unipolarity was a stable system after the collapse of the Soviet Union when the US had a hugely predominant amount of power. I don't think unipolarity is particularly stable when you have a China with double the industrial capacity of the US and a larger GDP by purchasing power parity. So I think multipolarity in the long run can be a stable system and one that actually reflects capabilities. But it's going to be a very rough road to establishing that stability, and it's very precarious. I think we're entering a period that is a lot more dangerous because the balance of power is shifting, and so national strategies are shifting, like we see here.
So it really feels like we are living through a tectonic shift in global relations.
We absolutely are. The biggest one, certainly since the end of the Cold War, and perhaps since the end of the Second World War.